Happy day, everybody. I'm Daniel Brafman, holistic health performance coach. As I speak to you today on Maxwell Maltz's Cybernetics, I'd also like to point out that I'm actually not speaking so much on the book, but that I'm using the content of the book as a hook and as a connection. Hopefully everybody who's watching this has looked at the book, so that they don't think that I'm just sort of, pulling this stuff out of my butt. But in a certain way, I kind of am, because as I speak on what is in the book, and today we're going to be covering Chapter 9, the failure mechanism, and how to make it work for you instead of against you. I am actually speaking about my experience. I'm speaking from a place of knowing, so that's why I tend to not like to quote a lot out of the book. That's also why I tend to not sort of follow everything exactly as it is, and I like to include other things. But I've been doing this work now for quite a long time, more than 20 years, and it's something that I will need to continue to do. So I'm just putting that out there as a reminder. It's all process. And that's a great reminder also to not be attached to the outcome. We really don't know what's going to come. We just kind of have to set goals and then come up with an action plan and focus on the plans and know that, if their plans are right and our execution is right, what we hope to accomplish will happen in an iteration that makes sense to what we've done. It's never going to make sense to what we wished we'd done if that's all we're focused on. It really is about action. Let's just kind of get right into it. Maxwell Maltz, Cybernetics, the failure mechanism, how to make it work for you instead of against you. Just like last week, this chapter for me is, especially relevant because it really does start to get in your face a little bit about what are you doing and what are you going to do about it. Not just the sort of more esoteric side of, you have your conscious mind that you're thinking with, and then you have your subconscious mind that you're rolling on, basically. So I like that metaphor because I like to think about our conscious mind as a steering wheel that is not always attached to the wheels. So it's sort of like, on a comedy routine where somebody says, hey, I'm going to take over the wheel. And the fun guy says, fine. He just hands them the wheel. It's not going to do you any good if it's not actually attached to the steering mechanism that's turning the wheels. The steering mechanism that's turning the wheels, that's directing us in our life, is not the steering wheel. It's the actual steering mechanism that's attached to the wheels. So we need to make sure that we are attaching our conscious mind to our subconscious mind, and that the only way that we're really going to know what's happening with the subconscious mind is by paying attention to the results. The subconscious mind is exactly that. It's not in our awareness. There's too much information there for us to really sort through it in a meaningful way for most of us, unless we're actually paying attention to the results. If we keep doing the same thing over and over again, we're going to keep getting the same results over and over again. So instead of trying to figure out necessarily what it is that we're doing, we can absolutely pay attention to what it is that we're experiencing. There's a part of this chapter, and I think it's super ahead of its time, considering that the first writing of this book was in the 1960s. It's talking about feelings, and feelings represents the soil for which all of our seeds grow. So again, think about those connections. Our conscious mind really is the Johnny Appleseed that's just sort of tossing out seeds constantly. But if we're not in touch with our feelings, if we're not in touch with what it feels like to fail, as well as to succeed, we're going to just keep doing the same things over and over again. And frankly, as a practitioner, as a coach, as a person who's done this myself, I can tell you, I don't know, about anybody else but me, but one strategy that never works is overthinking things. If you kind of don't have an altitude meter and you keep flying into the top of a mountain, the solution isn't really to, well, you know what, if I just build up enough speed, I'm going to blast right through this mountain. Really, that's kind of a nonsensical solution, yet I see people doing it. I've done it all of the time. You know, man, I just couldn't get past that barrier. Well, if I break through this barrier, if I break through this barrier, if I break through, I get a little bit more momentum, if I back up and go a little bit faster, you know, the collateral damage is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger with that kind of strategy. Yet it's one of the most common strategies that I see all along. And that's, again, it's, you know, let's look at the memetics that are around us, you know, no pain, no gain. You know, this idea that, you know, it takes stress to make you strong. Yeah, it does take stress, but, you know, you have to know what the right amount of stress is. And you also have to know that sometimes the better way to go is fly around the mountain, fly over the mountain. Don't fly through the mountain. And that's what most people keep trying to do, is they keep trying to fly through things because partly they're not paying attention to what it feels like. If they don't pay attention to what it feels like to, you know, to bounce off the mountain if you're lucky, but really to crash and burn is what most people are doing. Yet they've put themselves back together and in a damaged state, mind's not working right, and they still just keep thinking about how can I get through this mountain instead of over or around this mountain. Pay attention to the feelings. Pay attention to the feelings when you're manifesting and when you want to make things work. There's a great list of the things that we do that tend to sort of identify different categories of how we're just kind of getting it wrong. Frustration is a way of solving problems. Frustration as a way of solving problems does not work. Expressing frustration, discontentment, or dissatisfaction is a way of responding to problems that we've all learned as infants. If an infant is hungry, expresses, you know, discontent by crying, yeah, 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 yeah. You know, eventually they have to sort of just kind of take ownership. And this is what we're really kind of getting into in all of our personal growth stuff is not blaming, not being, you know, a victim, not saying, well, you did this and, you know, that's why I'm experiencing that. You know, and even if it is, you know, true that you did this and I experienced that, well, get over it. And get over your damn self while you're at it. I was actually going through some notes from one of the presentations, one of the academies that, you know, is kind of our reset buttons in the business that many of us do. And really right over the top of the page for no particular reason other than I guess I needed to remind myself, get over your damn self is exactly what I wrote. But we really do need to pay attention to what we're doing that's getting bad results. And we need to turn it around. And my teacher, Paul Chek, has a little thing that he does, that, you know, because every time we have, you know, we have to make a decision about something, it is a decision. And you get this or you get that. So he likes to recommend keeping a coin in your pocket that is an odd size coin. So maybe it's a foreign coin. I give all of my patients, athletes, clients, all of them, when they start to work with me, I give them a $50 because, you know, it's an odd size, it's an odd weight, tend to not want to spend them, and just keep it there and always remind them when you're trying to accomplish something, take that coin out if you have a decision to make and make your decision knowingly. Remind yourself, it's a stop, look, and listen type of strategy. Take that coin out and say, if I do this, then I can't do that. Or if I do this, I'm going to get that. You know, most of us have been on the planet long enough to actually, if we pay attention, we're going to know what the results of our activities are. You know, and that's something that we tend to not want to pay attention to. We'd rather just continue to try to build momentum and blast through that mountaintop. So I'm going to keep this really, really super short and just go right to the end of the chapter, because I really do think that, you know, our failure mechanisms is only a failure mechanism because we're not learning our lessons. As Bob Proctor, you know, says, as he's quoting, actually, a friend of his who gave him a list of 10 things that always happen in life. In life, there will be lessons. And the next item on that list is, and the lessons will be repeated until we learn our lessons. You know, this is really what we're dealing with right now. And when you're manifesting and when you're trying to figure out what it is you want, you shouldn't be thinking on the material end only. You should really be thinking about what it feels like to have that thing be successful. It's almost always a joy. Now, if you're not experiencing joy as a result of your activities somewhere down the line, then pay attention. Stop building momentum and flying into the mountaintop and do the work. Recognize the patterns. Recognize that that's something that you need to lift up into your conscious mind and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. You know, practice. You know, I did a couple of yoga classes today just because I could, and it was just fantastic. And it helped me think about what I have to do today with this call. And it reminds me constantly, practice is not for practice's sake. Practice is so when you're in the moment and you don't have the capacity for a higher level of thinking, what you need to do is already easy. You've done it, and you've done it, and you've done it. So a stressful situation doesn't take away your ability to do something that you've practiced. That's what practice is about. Practice is about making something accessible when you don't have the capacity to think things through. You think through ahead of time, you take your experiences, and you practice, and you practice, and you practice. And yes, it needs to be, to quote Vince Lombardi, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. I'm just going to say work on the percentages. Better practice makes better. So just keep getting better and better and better and pay attention to the details. It's all process. You're never going to perfect anything. You're never going to be totally in balance. One of the things I said to one of the yoginis today, we were just having a conversation, which is that balance is not like a scale of justice. It's not equal this and, always in this space. What it is, really, in a very practical way, it is that we're able to stay upright and keep moving forward when we're not in balance. You need to find out what your thresholds are and stay within them. And one of the best ways to do that is to practice. Practice when it's easy. Practice when it's not hard to stand upright, so that when it is hard to stand upright, what you need is already there. And I'm going to end on this one last thing that is in the book. It says, life becomes worthwhile when you have worthwhile goals. Just like in the last chapter, you're not moving. If you're on a bicycle and you're not moving, you may be able to stay upright for a while, but it takes a hell of a lot of energy and you have nothing to show for it. Stop standing in place. Just keep your goals your goals. They're just things that you're aiming for. They're not actually targets. As soon as you hit them, you're going to move them to another place and another place and another place. They're landmarks, they're benchmarks. They're just ways of knowing I can stretch again, and I can stretch again, and I can take on more. But just as balance is not a scale of justice, it really is more like a construction scale. And if you look at that one long arm and you wonder how the hell can that do all that work when it's so out of balance? But when you look at it, there are these heavy concrete slabs on the other side that have been engineered by somebody that knows what the hell they're doing. They know what the loads are going to be like. They know what the stressors are going to be like. They have a lot of experience, and they practiced and practice and practice at figuring out what are the slabs that need to go there. In yoga, we like to say falling is learning. Well, not falling is even learning more. So pay attention, figure out how many slabs you need to put on that one side, of the fulcrum on the crane, so that you don't tip over while you're doing the work that you need to do, because there's no such thing as perfect balance. Just like there's no such thing as flying straight at your target, there's no such thing as perfection. So I hope this was useful. I hope it didn't seem too random. It feels really good to me. Peace out, everybody. Thank you.